Let's take a moment to consider a reality that's often hidden behind the convenience of our daily lives: the fragility of the financial system. Your money isn't metal in a vault, it's numbers on a screen, and when the screen goes dark, reality changes overnight. Imagine waking up to find your bank app frozen, ATMs shuttered, and your hard-earned money suddenly out of reach, not because it's gone, but because the system that holds it has slammed its doors. This isn't a distant nightmare. It's a pattern etched into history, a reminder that no one is truly secure when trust in banks crumbles. Today, I'll share stories from around the world that reveal this truth, and more importantly, how you can protect yourself and build real resilience. Let's dive in. What if the key to safeguarding your future is understanding how quickly the present can change? Our tale starts in the bustling streets of Buenos Aires, Argentina, in December 2001. The economy was in free fall. Years of debt, corruption, and failed bailouts from the International Monetary Fund had left the country on the brink. Banks were hemorrhaging deposits as people panicked, converting pesos to dollars and wiring them abroad. The government, desperate to stop the bleed, acted overnight. They imposed the corralito, a freeze on bank accounts. Withdrawals were capped at 250 pesos a week, about $250 at the time, and dollar-denominated accounts were forcibly converted to devalued pesos. In an instant, savings meant for homes, education or retirement lost half their value. The streets erupted. Middle-class families who had felt secure banged pots and pans in protest, a sound that echoed through neighborhoods as riots spread. Businesses ground to a halt, not because of scarcity, but because cash flow froze. A doctor couldn't pay for supplies, a teacher couldn't afford bus fare to work. The lesson? When banks shut, the illusion of security shatters, revealing how dependent we are on a system that prioritizes its own survival. And Argentina wasn't an isolated case. Leap to Cyprus in March 2013, a small Mediterranean island nation reeling from the Eurozone crisis. Banks had overextended on Greek bonds, and the government needed a bailout from the European Union. The price? A bail-in, where depositors' money was seized to recapitalize the banks. Accounts over €100,000 were hit with levies up to 47.5%, wiping out savings overnight. Small business owners like Maria, a cafe operator in Nicosia, woke to find her life's work, funds for expansion, gone. She had trusted the system, but overnight, her future was rewritten. Protests filled the streets, ATMs limited withdrawals to €300 a day, and the economy contracted by 6%. Cyprus showed that even in the safe EU, governments will protect banks over people, using tools like freezes to stabilize the system at your expense. But this isn't just a small country problem. Recall the United States in March 1933, deep in the Great Depression. Banks were failing left and right. Over 4,000 had collapsed in the previous year alone. President Franklin Roosevelt, just days into office, declared a nationwide bank holiday. For 4 days, every bank in America closed its doors. People lined up in the cold, clutching passbooks, only to find them useless. The smell of desperation hung in the air as families worried about groceries and rent. Roosevelt used the time to inspect and reopen stable banks, but the shock lingered. A nation learned that their money was only as safe as the government's word, and it wasn't the last time. In 2008's financial crisis, the US bailed out banks with $700 billion in taxpayer money, while millions lost homes. These events reveal a pattern. Banks operate on fractional reserves, holding only a fraction of deposits in cash, about 10% in many systems, lending the rest out. When confidence cracks, runs begin, and freezes follow. The pattern repeated in Lebanon in 2019. Years of corruption and debt led to a liquidity crisis. Banks imposed unofficial capital controls, limiting withdrawals to $200 a week. The smell of burning tires filled Beirut as protesters stormed branches, some with guns. Savings evaporated in devaluation. $1,000 became $100 in real value. Families like the Al-Khalils, who saved for their daughter's education, watched dreams dissolve. Lebanon's GDP plummeted 20%, and the World Bank called it one of the worst crises in modern history. Again, the system protected itself, freezing assets to prevent collapse, while people suffered. And in Greece, just a few years earlier in 2015, capital controls capped ATM withdrawals at €60 a day. Weddings were postponed, surgeries delayed, lives stalled. For many, it wasn't a sudden collapse, but a slow suffocation, an economy on life support while citizens bore the cost. Even in stable nations like the US, the FDIC insures deposits up to $250,000, but its fund is only about 1.35% of insured deposits. If a widespread panic hit, the government would likely step in with freezes or bail-ins, just as others have done. A 2023 Federal Reserve report warns that digital banking makes these runs faster than ever. Funds can flee in hours with a few taps on a phone. The smell of fear spreads fast in a connected world. The pattern is clear. Banks and governments close ranks to protect themselves first, and depositors last, which means your money is yours, until the day it isn't. So what can you do? The answer is not panic withdrawals or stuffing cash under a mattress. History shows that fear only deepens collapse. The real strategy is resilience. Keep a modest emergency stash of cash. Diversify your savings. Don't keep all of it in one bank, one currency, or even one country. Real wealth is not what you see on a bank app. It's what you can access in a crisis. The lesson from Argentina, Cyprus, Lebanon, Greece, and even the United States is simple. Don't confuse access with ownership. Your wealth is only as secure as the system it depends on, and systems break. Preparing for that possibility isn't paranoia, it's wisdom.